The Terminalist and Lightyear, and what I consider to be a very big difference in the way that these media companies and the people who are creating art today approach the process of critique and how they view fans and the way that we as consumers take this entertainment in. So this first article says, Lightyear director lashes out at fans following box office failure. And it is, I think by now, fair enough to consider it a failure. So it says Lightyear was expected to be, by many, to be the top box office attraction. When it came time for the film to hit theaters, instead, thank you, the film fell quite short of those calculations. While the numbers for Lightyear were not bad, launching to around $50 million domestically in its opening weekend, and about $200 million worldwide, those were not nearly what anyone thought is not nearly what anyone was expecting from the film that was marketed as a prequel to the beloved Toy Story franchise with a budget, again, of more than $200 million.
It's not even a prequel, though, because it has nothing to do with the characters that come later on. And
they spend so much money. This is the other thing. They're spending so much money on these properties that making your money back is then insane. It's like impossible when you have to spend that much money. You're basically guaranteeing that they have to be billion-dollar franchises if you're going to turn a profit of any sort. So it says, however, Lightyear's box office woes were made worse by the incredible run for the Minions Rise of Gru, those gentle minions out there ruining Buzz Lightyear's day. The Universal Pictures and Illumination Studios film topped $128 million in its first weekend. Remember that. Minions, $128 million in its first weekend. Lightyear, $50 million. Toy Story is like a gazillion-dollar franchise. It says the Disney Pixar film was met with much controversy following the same-sex kiss. Nobody cares. It was brief. It was unimportant. That's not why people didn't go see this movie. Nobody skipped this movie because of...
Right. Mass droves of people were like, we're homophobic, so we're not going to watch Lightyear.
No, they did not know who to market this to.
Believed that other than Chris Evans.
So it says Lightyear director Angus MacLane has recently been involved in discussing on social media regarding the film and has spoken out in defense of the Pixar movie. Well, he has to. It's his movie. I don't blame him for that. He says he doesn't get the outrage and that life is too short to be upset about a science fiction movie when there's only a couple released every year. I don't get it, but whatever. Folks seem pretty steamed about the film. We only get 1 to 2 big science fiction movies a year. The supply is too low to get upset about them. Life is too short. No, the supply is too low that you should get upset about them if they don't live up to expectations. Actually, the movies should actually, if you're going to make only a couple of them a year, by the way, if you consider all superhero movies to be somewhat science fiction, they're all science fiction movies. In a way, I understand that that's not the genre, but
the supply is too low to get upset about them. What does that even mean?
Anytime directors start getting on Twitter to defend themselves, it doesn't go well.
It literally never goes.
He's
Ryan Johnson
traumatized and still processing.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, there was a Clownfish TV video from 2019 that has lived rent free in my head for like 3 years, where they review after Terminator Dark Fate came out, and the director, basically, they did what they do whenever these movies fail, kind of like what Taylor was just mentioning. Whose fault is it that this movie didn't do well? Well, it couldn't be my fault. It must be the fans' fault for not liking the 9,000th Terminator movie when none of them have been good after Terminator 2. But the point is that in the article, he says that he is processing the trauma of his movie bombing and the hyperbole of the idea that your movie not doing well at the box office is traumatic literally had me laughing for like 15 minutes.
They always have to run damage control on Twitter.
Yes.
Like, control yourself.
That they would literally do better to just not be on Twitter. Like Taylor said, like getting on Twitter is the worst thing you can do if you're a director and your movie isn't doing well. And then he says, another user saw the film and said that he didn't understand why the film was rated so lowly. MacLane responded by saying it mainly has to do with trolls. It's always those damn trolls'
much
fault.
like the second chapter of The Hobbit.
Very clever.
Wow, you're so smart.
There is a here I will say he's right about one thing, that the movie actually has a fairly high review. Like if you look at like who actually reviewed it, let's see if I can go back here to Lightyear. 1 second here. The score for it was actually not too bad.
85% audience score and 75% critical score.
Okay, so an 85% audience score is fine. So the question here is then, why didn't people come out to see it? It's got nothing to do with trolls. It has to do with you didn't know who the hell you were marketing to. Nobody knew what the hell this movie was supposed to be.
The timing was poor with Minions. being its competitor, I think.
Even then, I don't think they could have predicted that Minions was going to do as well as it did. But so your marketing is poor. Your actors talking about how the people who don't like it are dinosaurs is poor, so you're not running damage control on stupid Chris Evans who just doesn't learn his lesson. But with a high audience score, why aren't people going to see it? I ask you. Well, the guy from The Terminalist, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys still want us to review The Terminalist. I watched it. I loved it. I did not like it as much as I loved Reacher. But that is to be, Reacher was a very, very rare example of what I consider to be almost perfect television in current year. But if you would like us to review it, we can definitely do that when Mary can find the time to watch like 8-hour-long episodes. That's a lot of time.
I'll try.
So the idea here is so the Lightyear does bad and the director blames the fans. Well, what does The Terminalist do? The Terminalist has a score of, I wrote that down here as well, 43% critic score, 94% audience score.
That's dramatic.
That is a dramatic difference, and it's exactly what you'd expect from the critics. And the funny thing is, a lot of the critic complaints I completely understood, mainly that they're saying that Chris Pratt didn't have the range to pull off such a serious character. And I actually think that in a show as good as it was, I think Chris Pratt probably was the actual slightly weaker link compared to like Taylor Kitsch and the other stars of that show, Jan Triplehorn. So I don't think that they're wrong, but I think that giving it a 43% is so low and hyperbolic that it is in a way political in a nation. All the article reviews are like right-wing fantasy series because it has to do with the military, and anything to do with the military or people who actually like America is considered right-wing now.
Lightyear has to do with the military.
Space military, they make fun of space. Remember,
how about that?
95% for audience. I mean, the fans obviously liked it. Exactly.
And so the point here is that if you look at the Terminalist reviews, is the writer of the book series, Jack Carr, basically says, look, we didn't make it for critics. Mm-hmm. We made it for fans, for people who have, either for people in the military who have read this and understand it, or if you're just a regular dude who likes, this is a genre that I particularly love, even as somebody who has no illusions as to what the U.S. military means for this country, and it's not like I believe that we're out here fighting for freedom all over the world. I'm not disillusioned to it. Thank you. Taylor is now.
Party.
I understand what that means, but I love that genre of television. And he says he's a former Navy SEAL whose novel was published in 2018, appeared on Tucker Carlson Tonight. And he says when asked for his take on why the critics' rating was 43%,
I'm gonna catch.
She's very excited. Money. She's very excited, ladies and gentlemen. He says, I understand about the current culture and climate in America right now, Carr said. It seems I do have a hard time concentrating whenever we get Crisis Party. Okay. So it says, he says, it seems to have triggered quite a few of these critics. He says, the 95% viewer rating and audience ratings makes it all worth it. We didn't make it for the critics. We made it for those in the arena. We made it for the soldier, the sailor, airman, and marine that went downrange to Iraq and Afghanistan so they could sit on a couch and say, hey, these guys put in the work. They put in the effort to make something special and make a show that speaks to them. And that 95% rating lets me know that we are at least got close. He's spot on. Mm-hmm. You should be made, it's one of the reasons people complain that they're looking for, when they make these comic book movies and they deviate heavily from the source material, people are like, why are you doing that? You have a built-in audience with decade after decade after decade of people who either grew up reading them, is currently reading them, or at least read them when they were younger, right? Why do you keep veering off the source material to look for this phantom audience of people that don't exist from these target markets that aren't reading your stuff anyways? Why do you do that when you could just make your money catering to the people that actually want to buy your product? That's what they did here. And of course, you see when it's successful, he doesn't base his success on the fact that the critics like it. He bases his success on the fact that the audience liked it. Mm-hmm. And if more of these creators actually took that approach, we might be getting stuff that speaks to us more frequently, but we don't. Do you think this is one of these things where if they had made Thor Ragnarok or Thor Love and Thunder more in line with the comic storyline, I don't think it would have mattered because that's from a 2016 or 2017 issue of Marvel or timeline in Marvel that nobody liked anyways. Who are they making these movies for? Who is Lightyear supposed to be for? That was the number one question me and you kept asking ourselves. Who is this
Well, it's supposed to be, you know, marketed to children, right? But then, you know, from what I've heard about it, the tone of the movie is actually quite serious and oriented around like action scenes, more than humor or you know, what kids actually enjoy.
Yeah.
So it's like they were making a movie that could have been live action, but they made it animated because it's for children. And then it's a spin-off, so-called prequel that isn't a prequel to the original source material. Like, I think they got confused and they forgot like who actually was going to see this.
Mm-hmm. And people
and the audience score I think is so high because people, I don't think that people going to see Lightyear even expected it to be excellent. They just expected to sit and watch something for a couple hours. And
so what do we do with the directors in these cases? In the case of Jack Carr, who's not the director of The Terminalist, he's the writer. Anthony Fuqua actually was the director of the first episode and the co-executive producer of that show. Would it be so hard to put like a muzzle on these people and say, look, stop trashing people on Twitter when it doesn't go right? Like, a little bit of grace.
Their egos are so involved in these projects. It's like strange. Like if you're so invested in it, then why didn't you make something good?
A little bit of grace goes a long way, I think. Mm-hmm. Like to me, like
I don't understand why these people just like hate their audience
so
much. Where does it come from?
Well,
where does that come from?
The Terminalist writer.
Yep.
That I can respect that response because. I mean, he's at least being straight up that it was for the audience, not for the critics. But
I wonder how
the
he would
Lightyear
respond if, like, the audience response for The Terminalist had been negative.
Yeah, would he have had a lot to say then? I don't know. I think maybe it's best not to say anything sometimes because I think the critique would blow over fairly quickly.
Is it so hard if it does get a bad review and somebody says, look, we tried something, we didn't hit the mark, we're going to do better on the next one, and we hope that story resonates with people more clearly. Is it that hard to show a little bit of grace when something doesn't go according to plan? Like, am I nuts? Like,
yes, and like,
yes, I am nuts.
Puzzles, no, what puzzles me about it is like if you're so personally offended that people didn't enjoy what you made, then why weren't you more invested in like making it an excellent
Well, it also seems like if you're really happy with the outcome of something you created, it wouldn't matter that much if there were some people who hated it.
And to be fair, you're not wrong about one thing. Is like, look, if the guy who created Lightyear loves that movie and he thinks it came out just the way he wanted and it's everything he wanted his movie to be, and then it doesn't resonate with people, but it did. An 84% audience rating says it did. He's mad it didn't make more money. So is this the question of what he envisioned for this project is not doesn't have mass market appeal? And that is a huge problem right now, is they want to create niche stories for mass audiences and then get mad at the mass audience when the niche story doesn't resonate with them. And then they can blame the fans and call them names. Why didn't you like my story about this person that you've never heard of, that you don't care about?
I mean, I don't want to say like why would they care about this movie it's so niche and no one knows this character, why should they care? Because it would be the same thing if it were an original property.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you made that as a derivative of an existing property and then not anything like the original character that people know and love. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted to introduce something new and a new character for people to grow fond of, it wouldn't be Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when movies are made from like a franchise to try to have that nostalgic appeal, it actually turns people away more. Like I don't like it as much when they mess with the storyline, especially if it's like changing it up and it's not about the toy anymore. It's about this guy who inspired the toy.
Just not having Tim Allen, which they know
Yeah.
The average person knows that that's a political decision.
And
the
even
reason
he
they made
was
that decision because
confused why they didn't even ask him about this.
Well,
like,
that's
being
just
involved.
that's what you think of when you think of Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
At least I do. Maybe I'm just so old that I can't imagine another voice for him. But
Tom Hanks said the same thing. He says, "I have no idea why they didn't."
Yeah.
Because we know that they don't like Tim Allen because Tim Allen is a Hollywood conservative and they wanted to get away from it. Do I think that that's the reason that they didn't choose him for that role? I think it at least.
What if they made a movie about Woody? Would they have asked Tom Hanks to be
Yes,
involved?
they would have. Absolutely, they would have.
Think about it that way.
I do believe they would have. Also, they just don't make them separate. Keep them together. Like
Yeah, that was the whole appeal, is that they were each other's like foils.
exactly. So yes, the
I
funny
thought
thing is,
the whole appeal was that they were toys.
yes.
Well, of course, yeah. And like why you're interested in the story is literally that they are animated, inanimate objects rather than real people.
I mean, I think it's all right if they want to make a spin-off, but you can't expect it to please everybody.
It's but like I said,
Yeah.
I just really think it is a little bit of grace from these directors and these Hollywood people who, whether they like to admit it or not, they want to see themselves as like bastions for the people. Like we're here represent. Like people are sick of your elitist attitude towards the fans, the people who pay your bill, not pay your bills, but make these things worth these massive companies spending the money on you to make, and a little bit of grace goes a long way. So there's some super chats there.
Hobbit said, I've been a Tolkien fan since I was 8, I can tell by your name, and first listened to The Hobbit. When I heard about Amazon's show, I was initially excited, then disgusted as I learned more. Now I'm ready to point and laugh.
They've broken you. Then, if you're ready to point and laugh at something you love that much,
Do you
it
guys
means
want
that
us
we've-
to review that? I
That-
don't know
that-
if I'm even like emotionally prepared to.
I don't know if they're releasing it weekly. If they're releasing it weekly, we might be able to do
Yeah,
that.
maybe.
I would. I don't know if people would like to see us incorporate the reviews more into the segments of the show.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
so there's more interaction there. Like we reviewed Obi-Wan Kenobi, not
Yeah.
live on there. There was a super chat in there that said more reviews, less IRL. They're talking about how the format of the show, but the problem is when we have guests every day, we can't always ask the guests, like, look, in addition to your job
Yeah.
and helping us here, we also need you to watch this show. We can't do that with everyone. So it's like we would have to find a way to incorporate the reviews into the actual live show because it's a little bit harder to do the reviews separate because we have to make separate time for that. So if you guys would like to see them live as well because of the interactive process to it, just let us know.
We got a simp for Taylor in chat. Dragon's Talon 1001 says, since no one really cares about Buzz Lightyear, let's talk about Taylor. Single, likes, ring size, lol. He also said party. Thank you for giving us a crisis party.
Thank you.
I appreciate the interest. I'm not single.
Ring
but-
size.
Ring size, I don't even know. No ring on my finger yet.
Never. Likes.
Likes?
I don't even know what
Likes
that
and
means.
dislikes? Oh, I like skateboarding and playing guitar. I dislike watching terrible movies.
You're gonna fit in great here. She's gonna fit in great here.
But I appreciate the interest.
Yeah.
But no, not single.
I love that like pop culture is now just going to be a dating site.
That's what it is.
Hobbit said media
We're just not going to
claims-
hit any 17-year-olds up to let you know.
Please no.
Yes.
Media claims tons of people saw Thor because they thought it was super gay. Media also claims few people watched Lightyear because of a gay kiss. Make it make sense.
Make it make
sense.
sense.
Make it make
Pick a
sense.
It
side.
never will.
GLS Inc. said yes on terminal review. Less IRL time, more TV time. By the way, excellent job last week, Mary. Graduated cylinder. That's right. Us here on PCC, I guess we just have bigger brains than everyone else.
Me and Mary were the only ones who figured out graduated cylinder.
You had to
spoiled
alert
it
me as
for
I was
me,
in the
though.
middle of
I
my
think-
nap.
I think I was onto it, and then you just leaned over my shoulder.
And I was like,
And-
graduated cylinder. Very proud of that.
But
We
yeah,
solved a
it was
riddle.
impressive. If you guys can solve all the ones on the board down there, then I'll really be impressed.
Oh yeah, those are
Oh, I
pretty
got
old,
lucky.
though.
I'm not that smart.
I think some of those are just like kind of made up BS to get people staring at that board for a while thinking they're stupid.
I kind of like the idea
It's
that
like a
they're
prank.
They're fake. Like you're trying to figure out
That's
something
what I'm
that's not
saying.
solvable.
It's a
I love
prank
it.
to get people to just stand there clueless.
All right.
Molasses said, "Can you zoom in on the article text if possible? Thanks."
I would need the shortcut on how to do that. I'm a dummy. I don't know how to do that. Well, maybe we'll figure it out for next
Okay.
next segment.
Yeah.
Next episode.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you.
Bad Op said, "Me and Mary are twinsies in our Sad Boy jerseys today.
Oh.
Y'all need a new P.O. box." That we do. But I'm glad we're twinning. Hobbit said, "Brett, Amazon hasn't broken me with the Lord of the Rings show. I'm ready to point and laugh at their failures and woke BS. The books are going nowhere."
They're right about that. He's right about that, about the fact that you'll always have the original material. But for me, when I see stuff that I love get bastardized, there's so much stuff that I love. Like every so often, every couple of weeks or so, I do an Instagram story post, like where I post a bunch of like shows that are no longer on the air that are just what I consider to be underrated shows. And I said, look, if you're looking for something good to, like yesterday I posted Haven, Lost Girl, Covert Affairs, all of these shows that came out in this sweet spot of television between like 2010, 2015, which would be awful, objectively awful if they were made today with the standard of writing we're seeing. I can go back and watch those because they're not ruining them in current iterations. But I can separate art from artists with actors. Like I can watch an actor who has objectively awful opinions and still love their work. I have a very hard time watching something get ruined and then going back and watch it get, because if you take canon as gospel, if what happens later is actually there and you're actually trying to get into the entertainment, then I have a hard time going back and watching something that I used to love, knowing how it turns out later and having it ruined. That's just for me.
I understand that the books aren't going anywhere, but it does feel like it actively degrades the source material.
Yes.
When they do things like that.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.
Bye.